Visa Inc. is an American multinational financial services corporation headquartered in Foster City, California, United States. It facilitates electronic funds transfers throughout the world, most commonly through Visa-branded credit cards and debit cards. Visa does not issue cards, extend credit or set rates and fees for consumers. Rather, Visa provides financial institutions with Visa-branded payment products that they then use to offer credit, debit, prepaid and cash access programs to their customers. In 2008, according to the Nielsen report, Visa held a 38.3% market share of the credit card marketplace and 60.7% of the debit card marketplace in the United States. In 2009, Visa's global network processed 62 billion transactions with a total volume of $4.4 trillion. Visa has operations across India, Australia, Oceania, Asia-Pacific, North America, Central and South America, the Caribbean, Western Europe, Central and Eastern Europe, Africa and Middle East. Visa Europe is a separate membership entity that is an exclusive licensee of Visa Inc.'s trademarks and technology in the European region, issuing cards such as Visa Debit and Visa Credit. History. In mid-September 1958, Bank of America launched its Bank AmeriCard credit card program in Fresno, California, with an initial mass mailing of 60,000 unsolicited credit cards. The original idea was the brainchild of BofA's in-house product development think tank, the Customer Services Research Group, and its leader, Joseph P. Williams. Williams convinced senior BOFA executives in 1956 to let him pursue what became the world's first successful mass mailing of unsolicited credit cards to a large population. Williams' pioneering accomplishment was that he brought about the successful implementation of the all-purpose credit card, not in coming up with the idea. By the mid-1950s, the typical middle-class American already maintained revolving credit accounts with several different merchants, which was clearly inefficient and inconvenient due to the need to carry so many cards and pay so many separate bills each month. The need for a unified financial instrument was already evident to the American financial services industry, but no one could figure out how to do it. There were already charge cards like Diners Club, and, by the mid-1950s, there had been at least a dozen attempts to create an all-purpose credit card. However, these prior attempts had been carried out by small banks which lacked the resources to make them work. Williams and his team studied these failures carefully and believed they could avoid replicating those banks' mistakes. They also studied existing revolving credit operations at Sears and Mobil Oil to learn why they were successful. Fresno was selected for its population of 250,000, BOFA's market share of that population, and relative isolation, to control public relations damage in case the project failed. The 1958 test at first went smoothly, but then BOFA panicked when it confirmed rumors that another bank was about to initiate its own drop in San Francisco, BOFA's home market. By March 1959, drops began in San Francisco and Sacramento. By June, BOFA was dropping cards in Los Angeles. By October, the entire state had been saturated with over 2 million credit cards, and Bank AmeriCard was being accepted by 20,000 merchants. However, the program was riddled with problems, as Williams had been too earnest and trusting in his belief in the basic goodness of the bank's customers, and he resigned in December 1959. 22% of accounts were delinquent, not the 4% expected, and police departments around the state were confronted by numerous incidents of the brand-new crime of credit card fraud. Both politicians and journalists joined the general uproar against Bank of America and its newfangled credit card, especially when it was pointed out that the cardholder agreement held customers liable for all charges, even those resulting from fraud. BOFA officially lost over $8.8 million on the launch of BankAmericard, but where the full cost of advertising and overhead was included, the bank's actual loss was probably around $20 million. However, after Williams and some of his closest associates left, BOFA management realized that BankAmericard was salvageable. They conducted a massive effort to clean up after Williams, imposed proper financial controls, published an open letter to 3 million households across the state apologizing for the credit card fraud and other issues the card raised, and eventually were able to make the new financial instrument work. The original goal of BOFA was to offer the BankAmericard product across California, but in 1966, BOFA began to sign licensing agreements with a group of banks outside of California, in response to a new competitor, MasterCharge, which had been created by an alliance of several other California banks to compete against BankAmericard. BOFA itself could not expand directly into other states due to federal restrictions not repealed until 1994. Over the following 11 years, various banks licensed the card system from Bank of America, thus forming a network of banks backing the BankAmericard system across the United States. The drops of unsolicited credit cards continued unabated, thanks to BOFA and its licensees and competitors, until they were outlawed in 1970 due to the serious financial chaos they caused, but not before over 100 million credit cards had been distributed into the American population. During the late 1960s, BOFA also licensed the BankAmericard program to banks in several other countries, which began issuing cards with localized brand names. For example, in Canada, an alliance of banks issued credit cards under the Chargex name from 1968 to 1977. In France, it was known as Carte Bleue. The logo still appears on many French-issued Visa cards today. In Japan, the Sumitomo Bank issued BankAmericards through the Sumitomo Credit Service. In the UK, the only BankAmericard issuer for some years was Barclaycard. The branding still exists today, but is used not only on Visa cards issued by Barclays, but on its MasterCard and American Express cards as well. In 1968, a manager at the National Bank of Commerce, D. Hock, was asked to supervise that bank's launch of its own licensed version of BankAmericard in the Pacific Northwest market. Although Bank of America had cultivated the public image that BankAmericard's troubled startup issues were now safely in the past, Hock realized that the BankAmericard licensee program itself was in terrible disarray because it had developed and grown very rapidly in an ad hoc fashion. For example, interchange transaction issues between banks were becoming a very serious problem, which had not been seen before when Bank of America was the sole issuer of BankAmericards. Hock suggested to other licensees that they form a committee to investigate and analyze the various problems with the licensee program. They promptly made him the chair of that committee. In June 1970, Bank of America gave up control of the BankAmericard program. The various BankAmericard issuer banks took control of the program, creating National BankAmericard Inc., an independent Delaware corporation which would be in charge of managing, promoting and developing the BankAmericard system within the United States. In other words, BankAmericard was transformed from a franchising system into a jointly controlled consortium or alliance. Like its competitor MasterCharge, Hock became NBI's first president and CEO. However, Bank of America retained the right to directly license BankAmericard to banks outside of the United States, and continued to issue and support such licenses. By 1972, licenses had been granted in 15 countries. In 1974, the International Bank Card Company, a multinational member corporation, was founded in order to manage the International BankAmericard program. In 1976, The directors of IBANCO determined that bringing the various international networks together into a single network with a single name internationally would be in the best interests of the corporation. However, in many countries, there was still great reluctance to issue a card associated with Bank of America, even though the association was entirely nominal in nature. For this reason, in 1976, Bank Americard, Barclaycard, Carte Bleu, Chargex, Sumitomo Card, and all other licensees united under the new name, Visa, which retained the distinctive blue, white and gold flag. NBI became Visa USA and IBANCO became Visa International. The term Visa was conceived by the company's founder, D. Hock. He believed that the word was instantly recognizable in many languages in many countries, and that it also denoted universal acceptance. In October 2007, Bank of America announced it was resurrecting the Bank Americard brand name as the Bank Americard Rewards Visa corporate structure. Prior to October 3, 2007, Visa comprised 4 non-stock, separately incorporated companies that employed 6,000 people worldwide. Visa International Service Association, the worldwide parent entity, Visa USA, Inc., Visa Canada Association, and Visa Europe Limited. The latter 3 separately incorporated regions had the status of group members of Visa International Service Association. The unincorporated regions Visa Latin America, Visa Asia Pacific and Visa Central and Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa were divisions within Visa. Billing and finance charge methods. Initially, signed copies of sales drafts were included in each customer's monthly billing statement for verification purposes, an industry practice known as country club billing. By the late 1970s, however, billing statements no longer contained these enclosures, but rather a summary statement showing posting date, purchase date, reference number, merchant name, and the dollar amount of each purchase. At the same time, many issuers, particularly Bank of America, were in the process of changing their methods of finance charge calculation. Initially, a previous balance method was used, calculation of finance charge on the unpaid balance shown on the prior month's statement. Later, it was decided to use average daily balance, which resulted in increased revenue for the issuers by calculating the number of days each purchase was included on the prior month's statement. Several years later, new average daily balance, in which transactions from previous and current billing cycles were used in the calculation, was introduced. By the early 1980s, many issuers introduced the concept of the annual fee as yet another revenue enhancer. Under the IPO restructuring, Visa Canada, Visa International, and Visa USA were merged into the new public company. Visa's Western Europe operation became a separate company, owned by its member banks who will also have a minority stake in Visa Inc. In total, more than 35 investment banks participated in the deal in several capacities, most notably as underwriters. On October 3, 2007, Visa completed its corporate restructuring with the formation of Visa Inc. The new company was the first step towards Visa's IPO. The second step came on November 9, 2007, when the new Visa Inc. submitted its $10 billion IPO filing with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. On February 25, 2008, Visa announced it would go ahead with an IPO of half its shares. The IPO took place on March 18, 2008. Visa sold 406 million shares at $44 per share, raising $17.9 billion in the largest initial public offering in U.S. history. On March 20, 2008, the IPO underwriters exercised their overallotment option, purchasing an additional 40.6 million shares, bringing Visa's total IPO share count to 446.6 million, and bringing the total proceeds to $19.1 billion. Visa now trades under the ticker symbol V on the New York Stock Exchange.